All right, so I just picked up this 69-gallon RDS auxiliary gas tank. I guess it could be a transfer tank also, because it does, if you notice up here in the corner, have another plug in the top. But basically, I'm going to use this as an auxiliary tank in the back of my truck. And what I'm going to show you here is how I went about pressure testing the tank. Now, these tanks like this, you can't put very much pressure in there because, it doesn't take much at all to start blowing these things out. So if you're testing like a boat, gas tank or something that you need to test by holding pressure, no, you can't have much pressure in it. 1 to 2 psi. I think they say max 5 psi, but I didn't even get anywhere near that. I probably maybe did 1 psi in this tank because I did the soap and water test. So right here on the label, it says max test 3 psi. So they're recommending no more than 3 psi to do a pressure test on this tank. And all I did was I took out, there's a air valve that's here, and this is a 1/2 inch plug. So I took that 1/2 inch air valve out and I bought a cap, a PVC cap that I was going to put down in here and then pull this valve stem into that PVC cap. But when I got home and I checked the valve stem, it has a 1/2 inch base. Actually, it's a little bigger than a 1/2 inch base. So I was actually able to just screw that thing in, it's rubber, into this this port here, and it's holding pretty good. Now it's going to leak just a tad bit, but I mean, the amount of air you're putting in and the amount of air that's leaking out is not a big deal. And I used my little hand air compressor. Let me show you what I used. So I just used this rigid little hand air compressor. It's a low volume, high pressure air pump, that you would use to like air up your tires. But the point here is that it's not going to push a lot of volume in, so it's going to raise the air pressure in this big old massive tank very, very slowly. And you don't want to get, again, very high PSI in here. You use a big air compressor with a big massive tank and it can transfer a lot of air pressure into this tank really quick. You do not want to do that. So I use just this little air, compressor, this little handheld air compressor to connect to this valve and put in, less than 1 PSI. And I can show you that, this valve, I checked it, it was leaking. And I knew it was leaking, because it doesn't, it's just a piece of rubber screwed in. It's not going to be perfectly sealed in there. But I was able to spray this and see the bubbles coming out of it. It was kind of like a check for me to make sure that, there's enough air pressure in there to see bubbles. So then after I did that, I let this thing run for a little while. It has an automatic mode. And I went around and I sprayed all of the welds, all of the ports, the sensors, the gas cap. I mean, just everything. That cap over there. But the main thing I was wanting to check was the welds. You want to make sure that there's no holes or anything in the welds. And I'm pretty sure from the factory that they, pressure test these before they send them out. But, things happen in shipping. I mean, this one's got multiple dents in it just from shipping. And that's sadly pretty normal for something of this size. So before I put this and mount it in the bed of the truck and do all that work to get it in the bed of the truck and then turn around and put 60 gallons of diesel in this thing, I wanted to make sure it didn't leak. So let me show you real quick what I did and how I tested it. So first things first, I got this valve stem, and there's 2 main type of valve stems. I don't know what sizes they are, what they're called, but there's some that are bigger than this. And this one is, I think, a normal car type. Anyways, you're going to have 2 common size valve stems. The smaller one is this one. So if you got the bigger one, it's not even going to fit in this hole. The smaller size does fit in this hole, but you kind of have to squeeze it and twist it in at the same time. Again, you could get some kind of 1/2 inch plug and drill a hole in it. That was my plan. Pull this thing through the hole. But like I said, this thing was already bigger than 1/2 inch anyway. So I put that on there. I put the pump on here. It's useful to have something like this that has an automatic run where you can just set it and turn it on and let it go, because it's going to constantly be putting air in. But again, you don't want something that's high volume, because then you'll put too much air pressure in this tank. Make sure this pressure in the tank never gets above 1 to 2 psi, and you'll be pretty safe. All right, so I'm going to put some air in there. I'm not going to have this compressor running the whole time because, these are noisy. So basically just... This thing will run a long time and still not get it above 0 psi because, again, low volume. So it takes a lot to fill this thing up. But you're putting enough in there so that way you get a spray bottle, you know, like this is just some old spray bottle. I got soap and water in there, shook it up. But watch, if I spray this, you see the bubbles coming up around that valve stem? There's enough air in there to let you know you have a leak. So it's not like you need a ton of pressure in there in the first place. You know, you just need enough air in there that's going to want to escape. So then you go around every connection that's on this tank and you make sure that there is no bubbles coming out of any of them. Same thing with the cap. Same thing down here with the gravity plug. Same thing over there on that side. And if you don't see any bubbles coming out like this, you should be good. I went around and I sprayed every single one of the welds all the way around this tank. You know, a lot too. I didn't do just a little bit. I go down and spray it and just look for any kind of bubbles. As you can see, those bubbles come out pretty quick. Anyways, that's how you can go around and just make sure that you don't have a leak or anything in your tank before you go and install it in your truck. So I hope this was helpful. Again, just look for a small plug. I mean, there's multiple caps on these tanks used for different things, but just look for something like this you can screw in there. Or if you have, you know, if you want to do it and you don't want to do it like this, you can just come over here where there's like a, I don't know, I think these are 2-inch caps. You can just go get a 2-inch cap, drill a hole into it, the size of the hole on a wheel for the valve stem, and then you can just push the valve stem through that hole, pop it out, and you're essentially doing the same thing, and it probably won't leak, but you know, this was good enough for me. Anyways, I hope this was helpful. I hope it gives you some ideas on how to pressure test these before you put them in. All right, thank y'all very much for watching. Y'all take care.